Welcome back, everybody. Today we're doing a review on the AR-AK-21, or ARAK-21 as many of you guys know it. Basically what it is, it's an upper receiver assembly that fits on your AR-15 lowers and any of your mil-spec ones, I should say. And basically they claim that they have taken the best properties from both the AR and the AK and put it into one product. We'll get into that here later on in the review, but I've had this one in now for almost, well, I guess for 8 months. So this one here has been around for a long time. I have a ton of rounds through this upper assembly, a lot of experience with it. I played with it a good bit. And just to let you know, at the end, we're going to roll in a whole bunch of shooting footage because I have it. And for those of you guys that like that, by all means, stick around to watch it. For everybody else, at the end, you can, click off. But what we're going to do is just get into the features of it, the specs of it, what my experience has been with it so far, really what I think of it overall, and some of the future I think I see in this upper receiver assembly and maybe even firearms in the future. So right now what we're going to do is a little bit more shooting and then get into an accuracy test, come back in, check the specs out, and then give my summary at the end. So that's what's coming up next, guys. Time to test the accuracy of this 1-in-8 twist barrel. So we're going to have a few different loads here. First up will be the Freedom Munitions, the remanufactured stuff here that we shoot probably the most of because they're a channel sponsor. And we'll put that through, see what kind of group we can get. The target's downrange at 100 yards. And then we got a couple other loads we're going to try out as well. Enough gabbing, more shooting. Alright, not too bad, at least from what I can see here. We're using the primary arms, 1x6 variable power optic, for those wondering. Next load up, we'll shoot some 75 grain 223 Hornady tap. This is the bolt tail hull point stuff. In theory, should be pretty accurate. Never know. Every gun likes different ammo. Pretty good. And lastly, we'll fire some 223 Wolf Gold. This stuff's really popular. I've never shot it for groups ever, so this will be the first time, but I get a ton of requests for it. So I ordered some up over at AIM Surplus. They had some recently for a pretty good deal, so we'll see how it does. It's not a good sign. Helps if you seat the mag. There you go. So Lancer 10-round mag, for those wondering. Seems to want a little extra tap on there. check it out. All in all, certainly not too shabby. We'll go in order here with the Freedom Group first. You see right under 3 inches on that one, so not great, not at all. But keep in mind, guys, it's just remanufactured practice ammo. Actually, that's probably the worst group we've ever had with that ammo, which is somewhat odd. And here with the Hornady, right at 1.5 inches on the dot. And then the best group of the day, for sure, was the Wolf. That's under 1 inch, guys. So certainly not match grade ammo, not advertised as such anyway, but it shot really well here in this barrel for sure. I'd say right at 7/8 of an inch. So can't complain about that at all. And keep in mind, guys, with that ARAK 21, that barrel's not free floated. And they claim that they have sub MOA barrels. So it seems that it's certainly possible if you have the right load. The barrel that we're shooting out there is your medium profile 1-in-8 twist 4150 CMV barrel. It is nitrided for corrosion resistance as well as durability. It gives you a nice surface tension on there as well as a nice even black finish. Up front there, it's threaded for 1/2 by 28 inch threads, so you can see you can use any sort of muzzle device that you want on there that's compatible with the AR, as well as suppressors like you guys have seen throughout this video. Moving back a little bit here, we have our gas position adjuster here. There's a bunch of different settings. I think there's like 5 or 6. And honestly, this rifle's been 100% if I left it in the normal position. So me playing with it, I did have a malfunction trying to run it suppressed, just messing around with it. Actually, I was trying to see if I could get it to malfunction. Lo and behold, I did. And I literally corrected the malfunction by just turning it back to its standard position, firing, and never had another malfunction. So reliability outside of user error or user introduced error, if you will, has been 100%. So that's just certainly nothing to complain about there at all. The upper receiver is made of 6061 T6 aluminum, and on top here we do have the monolithic rail, so a very strong and rigid design. It's 1913 specs, so any of your accessories, sights, optics, etc. that are going to work with that will work on here. These sections here on the side, these rail sections, are removable. You can see you can just remove them if you want to sort of lighten the load or sort of just make your rifle a little bit more smooth, but you can add any sort of accessories that you do want on there, as you've seen throughout the video here. On the left side of the rifle, as it comes from the factory, is our non-reciprocating charging handle. That's what's going to work the action. And if you want to fold it out of the way, you can sort of pull out on it and then push forward. You can actually switch it over to the right side as well for you left-handed shooters or people who just prefer that setup. The upper operates on a long stroke piston design, which we're going to show you in detail here in a second, but because of that, it's completely contained here, and we'll show you that here in a second in detail as well. So what that means is if you're using your AR-15 lower, like the standard ones that we've been using throughout the review here, there really is no need for a buffer or buffer spring or any of that. That allows you to use any sort of folding stocks that you want, but it will just drop right into any sort of mil spec lower just by pushing a couple pins. It's that simple. To disassemble the upper, you're just going to push this rear bolt here, or I should say pin, across. It's a captive pin, and pull it out. It stays in place. And at that point, we're going to push forward and up on our recoil spring. Take our charging handle here, pull it back, and there is the long piston that we talked about earlier, and our bolt. You can see some similarities there basically to your AK and AR platform, hence the hybrid of the design. To remove the actual firing pin here, we're going to do the same thing and just sort of push this pin across, take out our firing pin. Looks very similar to what you're going to see on an AR, and remove our bolt. You can see some differences there, a couple interesting ones. There's 2 ejectors there, and obviously your single extractor, and an 8-plug design, so you're going to have more support around the chamber than you would in your standard AR-15. What we just did is what you're going to do for your normal field servicing and just cleaning of the weapon after you take it to the range or whatever the case may be, but it does have the capability to be taken down further and actually swap barrels out very easily. We have 6 captive screws here, and you can actually just undo those and pull the barrel out in a second. We'll sort of fast forward as I undo those and come back when we got them out. Through the magic of video editing, we're all through there, and you remove your lower handguard here, and you can see those screws are captive like we just talked about. And the barrel here will come right out. Basically what you have to do is just pull it forward and pull up. And you can see it's sort of got these little grooves in there. I believe they call them keys, where it sort of keys into the receiver, if you will. And there you go. Once you get it forward, that is it. That's all there is to it. So there's your barrel assembly. And you can just drop your next barrel in. Now they do make, as of right now, 5.56, 300 blackout, and 7.62 by 3.9 for these. I had the distinct pleasure of firing one of their prototype 7.62 by 3.9s down at ARAK Veteran 888's YouTube shoot, and it's a good time, and I'm looking forward to hopefully getting one in one day to play with, but it's got a lot of promise and certainly worked well down there. You can see some corrosion or I guess build up there from the suppressor, but other than that, it's going to stay relatively clean, and you're not going to have to take it out very often. So that's it there. And to put it back together, we're just going to put it in, or if you want to just switch your calibers out and drop a new barrel in, you're just going to put it back in there, kind of work it down in there, and push back so it locks into place, and that's it. And now put your lower handguard back on. Reassembly is basically just what we did in the opposite order that we took it apart in. One thing I should point out here is on your bolt, you need to be careful, is that you can put your extractor on either side and still reassemble it. And the reason for that is they do have left-hand eject models, and they also now, I believe anyway, have ambi ejection models. So ones that are going to eject out the right like we have here and the left side. So you better make sure that you line your bolt up. It's not all that hard. It takes just a little bit of thought, but something worth noting there. So on this one, we're going to set it up for right-hand eject, I should say, with our extractor there on the right side, and line our little hole up there with our cam pin, just like you would in an AR. Slide that sucker home. There you go. And put our firing pin in, and push the pin across, make sure it's in there, and it is. At this point, you kind of just have to wiggle it. There's no real trick to it. And one thing I should point out here is that this piece is nitrided 4150 steel, and you don't have steel riding on aluminum. The upper receiver is aluminum. However, you see these little bolts running across each side. What's actually in there in the receiver is steel inserts in there, and those are 4150 nitrided steel as well. So you have steel on steel throughout the mechanism for, you know, long life and long wear, or slow wear, I should say. You just sort of want to angle it and just kind of drop it in. Goes home. And we're going to send our spring back in there as well. If I can get it lined up, trying to sort of keep it on camera. It's much easier if you're not trying to keep it on camera, I assure you. And you're going to line it up. Again, the whole camera thing here, guys. Hold on. And there we go. Push our pin across. And that's it. It's reassembled. Those are most of the details on it. I didn't want to get too bogged down there with the details, but basically what I think of it overall is it has a lot of things going for it. Reliability, like we mentioned earlier, has been 100% unless I'm messing it up intentionally. So it runs awesome. Just great there. We ran a few different lowers on it, had no fitment issues at all. I believe a Colt, a Palmetto State Armory, and an Aero Precision have been used on this. All of them function perfectly. And what you get with it is you do get, you know, your piston design, piston upper, so you get the advantages that come with that, which generally speaking are going to be that back here in the action of it, it's going to run cleaner, it's going to run cooler as well, so over extended firing periods, that certainly is a good thing. I'm sort of always been on the fence about, you know, direct impingement versus piston in terms of ARs, if there's any real practical advantage. I mean, both of them seem to work well in my opinion, but I know there's a lot of folks that really prefer that piston system. So for those of you out there that do, this certainly works well. It seems to be a very well-designed piston system, and unlike a lot of ARs that are piston operated, there's no chance of carrier tilt problems, so that's certainly a good thing. Like I said, all the functions of your AR lower, you know, you basically have your side charging handle, which a lot of ARs are going to these days anyway, and still have your easy like bolt release and stuff like that, should you want to do it. All that stuff is there, so that's really great in my opinion. The sort of cons of it, if you will, is that when mounted up like this on your standard mil-spec lower, you're going to get basically a weapon that weighs unloaded anywhere from 7.5 to 8.5 pounds, depending on what you have in your lower. So that's the weight of it there. That's with the medium contour barrel. So you can add other barrels. They do have shorter barrels. So if you're running a shorter barrel or a heavier barrel or a 20-inch barrel, they have all that stuff. So that's going to affect it too. But just your basic setup, like you see here, 7.5 to 8 pounds, 8.5 pounds, I should say. So that's relatively heavy. And it is what it is. When you have that kind of milled receiver like this, up receiver, it's going to add weight. So it's the nature of the beast. The other con that I really think a lot of people are going to see with it is that the optics rail, due to the piston system and the way it works, is a little bit higher than what you're going to see in your AR-15. So your cheek weld is going to be different with certain optics. So for that, I really don't see this as a big deal at all. As you've seen here, we've had no problems with optics throughout the review, but it's just worth noting. So if you're going to go with like an optics mount that's going to give you either a lower 1/3 or an absolute co-witness on your AR-15, I'd go with the absolute if you're going to run it on this weapon system. So that's pretty much it. I guess that sort of takes care of it. Or you can, of course, also buy like something with a cheek riser, like your Magpul CTR type stock. But that's pretty much it, guys. Oh yeah, cost. Cost comes in, the MSRP on the uppers for your standard model, like you see here, is I believe $1,200. So relatively expensive there as well, but there's a lot of advantages to it, again, like we talked about. So pros and cons to it, but I think it's a really good weapon system. I've seen some of the prototypes that they're coming out with, like we mentioned, the ambidextrous ejection and extraction. I think they have some stuff coming out, maybe with longer rails, maybe some stuff that with less 1913 on there. I don't know. I'm just kind of sort of going from what I've read on the interwebs, if you will, but there's a lot of potential for this platform, and it seems that they got it running well here. If you guys have any questions that we didn't cover in the video, by all means, post below in the comments section. You can also post over at my Facebook page as always, but thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for subscribing, and I hope to see you in the next video.